Start this up again. Alright. Yeah, so Thursday mornings, go ahead. Get on here, ask some questions if you are bored. I was just reading the Brit Shah portions, which is the New Testament portions, the renewed covenant, the new covenant. I had a conversation recently with people who don't believe evil exists, evil exists, I guess, but not fallen angels and not the devil. One of the passages was Jude, so I'm just going to read that really quick here. Let's see. So I will therefore, Jude 1:5. I will therefore put you in remembrance, though ye once knew this is how the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, after destroying them that not believed, and the angels. Wait, no, I missed some stuff here. We're supposed to be talking about a lot. Oh, whatever. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. So who are these angels that kept not their first estate, and why are they being punished, if there is no evil? Even, here we go, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, having given themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. And what was that eternal fire? It was destruction, right? We read, likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. Yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses. Interesting. So we got fallen angels, we got Michael fighting. Well, as if there's no devil, then he's fighting against God. He's fighting against God for the body of Moses. And do angels always agree with God? There's lots of problems. I haven't even really thought about all the things that brings to the table of confusion. But yeah, I think fallen angels existed, and I think that's makes the Old Testament much more clear, and with the Raphaim and the Nephilim and all that. Left not their first estate. Everlasting chains and darkness. Going after strange flesh too. Sodom and Gomorrah 7 there, 1:7. And what was that all about? What was going on? Is this where we get all the Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology and minotaurs and all that and centaurs? I don't know. It's a question for another time. What was another? Galatians 3. Let's go there quick. I was reading this one too. And why grafted into Israel? Why that page name? 3:29. And if we be Christ, then we are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Was the promise? Israel is the promise. We are his nation. We are God's people. That's why we are grafted into the promise. And that's the good news, right? All right, so let's get back to Jasher, the Skeptic's Bible. It's tiring. I hate his little comments. He just gets worse towards the end. He's just, how many sons did Abraham really have? Ugh. All right. Looks like we're good. Oh, I didn't actually go live. There we go. I think I have recorded on the YouTube video. Oops. Well, watch the first 5 minutes of the YouTube video when I post it. Sorry. But here we go. Some good points, though. Jasher 21. And it was at that time, at the end of the year, 4 months of Abraham's dwelling in the land of Philistines in Gerar, that God visited Sarah, and the Lord remembered her, and she conceived and bare to Abraham a son. And Abraham called the name of the son which was born to him, which Sarah bare to him, Isaac. Sorry. And Abraham circumcised his son at 8 days old, as God had commanded to do unto his seed after him. And Abraham was 100 and Sarah 90 years old when Isaac was born. So clotting factor actually peaks at 110% on the 8th day. So It allows the body to, not bleed out. So look at that little science for you. Because they don't have it when they're first born, so that's why they can't circumcise on the first day. And the child grew up, and he was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast upon the day that Isaac was weaned. And Shem and Eber and all the great people of the land, and Abimelech king of the Philistines and his servants, and Phicol, the captain of his host, came to eat and drink and rejoice at the feast which Abraham made upon the day of his son Isaac being weaned. Also Terah the father of Abraham and Nahor his brother came from Haran. They and all belonging to them, for they had greatly rejoiced in hearing that the son had been born to Sarah. What? That feels inconsistent. We're pretty sure Genesis talks about Terah dying. And that might be that. I don't know about that one. Write that one down. We'll get back to that one. We talked about that it already didn't match up. That was one of the skeptics' remark. Last thing that Abraham left, said it waited for his father to die. And that might be let the dead bury their own dead. Like, he's leaving him to die because he's not listening. He's not following God's plan like he was supposed to. So Abraham just had to go and get his stuff done. Get thyself out was the name of it. Lech lecha. So that might be the case here, and he's still alive. Ooh, he's an old dude at this point. Then, if Abraham's 100, Terah's. Ooh. And they came to Abraham, and they all ate and drank at the feast which Abraham made upon the day of Isaac's being weaned. And Terah and Nahor rejoiced with Abraham, and they remained with him many days in the land of the Philistines. At that time Serug, the son of Reu, died in the first year of the birth of Isaac, son of Abraham. Who was Reu? I think he was the guy down in Egypt who became Pharaoh. I might be wrong. And all the days of Serug were 239 years, and he died. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, was grown up in those days, and he was 14 years old when Sarah bare Isaac to Abraham. Sorry, I keep calling him Abram now. I got so used to calling him Abram. And God was with Ishmael, the son of Abram, and he grew up, and he learned to use the bow and became an archer. And when Isaac was 5 years old, he was sitting with Ishmael at the door of the tent. And Ishmael came to Isaac and seated himself opposite to him. And he took the bow and drew it and put the arrow in it and intended to slay Isaac. And Sarah saw the act which Ishmael desired to do to her son Isaac, and he grieved her exceedingly on account of her son. And she sent for Abram and said, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for her son shall not be heir with my son. For thus did he seek to do unto this day. So in the Brit Hadashah portions, one of the skeptics' remarks was, it says, the only begotten son of Abraham. Well, kind of sounds like he's getting out of the fold here, kind of like the dead bury their own dead thing, So he's no longer going to be considered a son after this. Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarah, and he rose up early in the morning. He took 12 loaves and a bottle of water, and he gave to Hagar, Ishmael's mother, and sent her away with her son. And Hagar went with her son to the wilderness, and they dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, the inhabitants of the wilderness. And Ishmael was an archer, and he dwelt in the wilderness a long time. And he and his mother afterward went to the land of Egypt, and they dwelt there. And Hagar took a wife for her son from Egypt, and her name was Meribah. And the wife of Ishmael conceived and bare 4 sons and 2 daughters. And Ishmael and his mother and his wife and children afterward went and returned to the wilderness. And they made themselves tents in the wilderness, in which they dwelt, and they continued to travel, and then to rest monthly and yearly. And God gave Ishmael flocks and herds and tents on account of Abram his father, and the man increased in cattle. So he's still blessing him. And Ishmael dwelt in deserts and in tents, traveling and resting for a long time, and he did not see the face of his father. And some time after, Abram said to Sarah his wife, I will go and see my son Ishmael, for I have desired to see him, for I have not seen him for a long time. And Abram rode up upon one of his camels to the wilderness to seek his son Ishmael, for he had heard that he was dwelling in a tent in the wilderness with all belonging to him. Abram went to the wilderness, And he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon, and he asked after Ishmael had found the wife of Ishmael sitting in the tent with her children, and Ishmael her husband and his mother were not with them. And Abram asked the wife of Ishmael, saying, Where has Ishmael gone? And she said, He has gone to the field to hunt. And Abraham was still mounted upon the camel, for he would not get off to the ground, as he had sworn to his wife Sarah that he would not get off from the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, My daughter, give me a little water that I may drink, for I am fatigued from my journey. And Ishmael's wife answered and said to him, We have neither water nor bread. And she continued sitting in the tent, and did not notice Abraham, neither did she ask him who he was. But she was beating her children in the tent, and she was cursing them. And she also cursed her husband Ishmael, and reproached him. And Abram heard the words of Ishmael's wife to her children, and he was very angry and displeased. Child abuse. And Abraham called to the woman to come out to him from the tent, and the woman came and stood opposite to Abraham, for Abraham was still mounted upon the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, When thy husband Ishmael returneth home, say these words to him. And a very old man from the land of Philistines came hither to seek thee, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing thou wast not here, he spoke unto me and said, When Ishmael thy husband returneth, tell him thus did this man say. That's just confusing. When thou hast come home, put away this nail of the tent which thou hast placed here, and place another nail in its stead. Pretty much telling Ishmael through code, get rid of this woman. You need another nail in this tent. This one's bad. Smart dude. And Abraham finished his instructions to the woman, and he turned and went off on the camel homeward. And after that Ishmael came from the chase, he and his mother, and returned to the tent, and his wife spoke these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came to seek thee, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was. I should remember all this. And seeing thou wast not at home, he said to me, When thy husband cometh home, tell him, Thus said the old man, Put away the nail of the tent which thou hast placed here, and place another one instead. Ishmael heard the words of his wife, and he knew that it was his father, and that his wife did not honor him. And Ishmael understood his father's words that had spoken to his wife, and Ishmael hearkened to the voice of his father, and Ishmael cast off that woman, and she went away. A little divorce there. And Ishmael afterward went to the land of Canaan, and he took another wife, and he brought her to his tent, to the place where he then dwelt. And at that time, and at the end of 3 years, Abram said, I will go again to see Ishmael my son, for I have not seen him for a long time. And he rode upon his camel and went to the wilderness. And when he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon, and he asked after Ishmael, and his wife came out of the tent, and she said, He is not here, my lord, for he has gone to hunt in the fields, and to feed the camels. And the woman said to Abraham, Turn in, my lord, into the tent, and eat a morsel of bread, for thy soul must be weary on account of the journey. And Abraham said to her, I will not stop, for I am in haste to continue my journey. Lord, give me a little water to drink, for I have thirst. And the woman hastened and ran to the tent, and she brought out water and bread to Abram, which she placed before him, and she urged him to eat. And he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted, and he blessed his son Ishmael. And he finished his meal, and he blessed the Lord, and said to Ishmael's wife, When Ishmael cometh home, say these words to him. A very old man from the land of the Philistines came hither and asked after thee, and thou wast not here. I brought him out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to Ishmael, When Ishmael thy husband cometh home, say to him, The nail of the tent which thou hast is very good. Do not put it away from the tent. Aw, so sweet. And Abraham finished commanding the woman, and he rode off to his home, to the land of the Philistines. And when Ishmael came to his tent, his wife went forth to meet him with joy and a cheerful heart. And he said to him, An old man came here from the land of the Philistines, and thus was his appearance. And he asked after thee, and thou hast not here. So I brought out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. I'd like to know what his appearance was. That'd be cool. And he spoke these words to me. When Ishmael thy husband cometh home, the nail of the tent which thou hast placed is very good. Do not put it away from the tent. And Ishmael knew that his that it was his father, and that his wife had honored him, and the Lord blessed Ishmael. Jasher 22. And Ishmael then rose up and took his wife and his children and his cattle and all belonging to him and journeyed from there, and he went to his father in the land of the Philistines. And Abraham related to Ishmael his son the transaction with the first wife that Ishmael took, according to what she did. And Ishmael and his children dwelt with Abraham many days in that land, and Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines a long time. And the days increased and reached 26 years, and after that Abraham with his servants and all belonging to him went from the land of the Philistines, removed to a great distance, and they came near to Hebron, and they remained there. And the servants of Abraham dug wells of water, and Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt by the water. And the servants of Abimelech king of the Philistines heard that the report of Abraham's servants had dug wells of water at the borders of the land. And they came and quarreled with the servants of Abraham, and they robbed them of the great well which they had dug. And Abraham king of the Philistines heard of this affair. Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And he, with Phicol, the captain of his host, and 20 of his men, came to Abraham. And Abimelech spoke to Abraham concerning his servants. And Abraham rebuked Abimelech concerning the well of which his servants had robbed him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, As the Lord liveth, who created the whole earth, I did not hear of the act of which my servants did unto thy servants until this day. And Abraham took 7 ewe lambs, and gave them to Abimelech, saying, Take these, I pray thee, from my hands, that it may be a testimony for me that I have dug this well. And Abimelech took the 7 ewe lambs, which Abraham had given to him, for he had also given him cattle and herds in abundance. And Abimelech swore to Abraham concerning the well. Therefore he called that well Beersheba. Look at that. For there they both swore concerning it. And they both made a covenant in Beersheba. And Abimelech rose up with Phicol, the captain of the hosts, and all his men, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he was in that land a long time. And Abraham planted a large grove in Beersheba, and he made it up to 4 gates facing the 4 sides of the earth. And he planted a vineyard, because it's flat. And so if a traveler came to Abraham, he entered any gate which was in his road, and he remained there, and ate and drank, and satisfied himself, and then departed. For the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men, that passed and repassed, who came daily to eat, drink in the house of Abraham. Look at that, all these comments from people. So many I can't even answer them all. And hungry people came, and anyone naked, and clothes, and he did good stuff. And Abraham and his children and all that dwelt with him in Beersheba, and he pitched his tent as far as Hebron. And Abraham's brother Nahor and his father and all belonging to them dwelt in Haran still. So they're still in Haran. Seems inconsistent. I want to answer that one. For they did not come with Abraham to the land of Canaan. And the children were born to Nahor, which Milcah, the daughter of Haran and sister of Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare to him. And these were the names that were born to him. And these 8 sons considered... I know names are important, but I'm tired. These are the children of Milcah, which he bare to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And Nahor had a concubine, her name was Reumah, and she also bare to Nahor Zebrak, Mekash, Tekash, 4 other sons. And the children that were born to Nahor were 12 sons, besides his daughter, and they had children born to them in Haran. And children. These are the families of the children of Nahor, and they were born to them in Haran, and Aram, and the son of Kemuel, and I'm sure the names are important, I'm sorry. Oh, sister Rebecca. There we go, Laban, Rebecca, so that's where she comes from. There was a point, I knew there was a point. Dwelt by the river Euphrates, and they built a city there. They called the name of the city after the name of Pethor, the son of Aram, and this is Aram Naharaim unto this day. The children of Chesed also went to dwell where they could find a place valley opposite to the land of Shinar. I wonder if Nimrod's still living there. And they dwelt there. I think he is. Terah's still alive, who served Nimrod, so people living a long time. I feel like we've gone so far, but Nimrod's still causing trouble. And they were built themselves a city and called the name of the city Chesed, after the name of the king of their father, that is the land of Kasdim, unto this day. And the Kasdim dwelt in that land, and they were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. Why is Nimrod not attacking people? Because Abraham kicked his butt. Remember? His name was Amraphel. Because they won the battle over the 5 kings. But Abraham came in and killed them all. And it says that only the 4 kings escaped. So Nimrod and 3 other dudes. Everyone else died. So they don't want to mess with Abraham, even though he's old. And they probably don't have much of an army anymore, since they lost like 800,000 men. And Terah, father of Nahor and Abraham, went and took another wife in his old age, and her name was Pilah. And she conceived and bare him a son, and called his name Zobah. And Terah lived 25 years after he begot Zobah. And Terah died in that year, and it is the 35th year of the birth of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and he was buried in Haran. And Zobah the son of Terah lived 30 years, and he begot Abram, Achilles, and Merek. So that's interesting, that Abraham is now living in Haran with his father. So maybe that's what we're missing here in Genesis, that now he's going to leave Haran. Let's see what happens. I mean, do we got are things out of order? What's going on? It's confusing. Aram, the son of Zobah, son of Terah, had 3 wives, and he begot 12 sons and 3 daughters. And the Lord gave to Aram, the son of Zobah, riches and possessions and abundance of cattle and flocks and herds, and the man increased greatly. I don't care about these people. I don't know what's going on. The son of Zobah and his brother and all his household journeyed from Haran. And they went and dwelt where they should find a place, for their property was too great to remain in Haran, for they could not stop in Haran together with their brethren, the children of Nahor. And Aram, the son of Zobah, went to his brother, and they found a valley at a distance toward the eastern country, and they dwelt there. And they also built a city there, and then called the name thereof Aram, after the name of their eldest brother, that is Aram Zobah, to this day. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was growing up in those days. And Abraham his father taught him the way of the Lord, to know the Lord, and the Lord was with him. When Isaac was 37 years old, Ishmael his brother was going about with him in the tent. So they're back together. They're hanging out again. So this is Isaac is probably around. Oh, yeah, it tells me right there, 37. I was gonna say he's around 30 years old. Tells me right there. Because we don't really know, and what we always get when we see Isaac being sacrificed, he looks like he's like 5, he's like 10 years old. Like, what are you doing? He's 37. He's like, and his father's like what, 120? He'd be like, Dad, no, you're not stabbing me with a knife. Give me the knife. You're losing your brain. No, but he obeyed. Let him. We haven't got there yet. Sorry, but that's interesting. Because we got these implanted images in our heads of what went on, and it was very different. I think it would have been cool if he was 33 years old. But, oh well. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac, saying, I was 13 years old when the Lord spoke to my father to circumcise us, and I did according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke to my father, and I gave my soul unto the Lord. I did not transgress his word, which he commanded my father. So we see Ishmael still striving after God, and that's the same, because we know that Ishmael created pretty much what would be like the Arabs and most of Islam today. So they still believe in Abraham, their forefather, through Ishmael. So they still are striving after God, following after God. In a lot of ways, they're more passionate than we are, and some are passionate in the wrong ways. Just had the New York attack, guy getting out shouting Allah Akbar, but they're still serving the same God, right? So it comes back to that, this is not like a false god or like a Nimrod or a Nephilim or a fallen angel that they're worshiping, like a lot of the Greeks and the Egyptians were worshiping. And like, oh well, God wouldn't. What have we done with the Crusades and everything in the name of God? So keep that in perspective, before you put yourself up on a pedestal. It's very easy to be confused, and that's why you got to study this stuff. Get your foundation. Get off the soapbox. Get to reading. Why dost thou make this boast to me about a little bit of thy flesh? Oh, calling him out, which thou didst take from thy body, concerning which the Lord commanded thee. As the Lord liveth, the God of my father Abraham, if the Lord should say unto my father, take now thy son and bring him up as an offering before me, I would not refrain, but would joyfully accede to it. Careful what you wish for. That kind of makes sense. I don't know how I feel about that. I missed that the first time I read this, apparently. I probably passed out from reading all the names. That happens to me, like the son of blah, 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 and you miss something like this. It's, wow. And the Lord heard the word of Isaac, spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of the Lord, and he thought to try Abraham in this matter. Trials and tribulations, folks. And the day arrived, and the sons of God came and placed themselves before the Lord. Oh, man, we got a Job thing going on here. Oh, this is good. This is good. I'm waking up now. And Satan also came with the sons of God before the Lord. So we got angels coming with Hasatan, Satan. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down it. So people who don't believe in the devil say that this is God talking to himself. He's having conversations with himself. And it's weird. I don't know. And the Lord said to Satan, I try to have an open mind, but I feel pretty closed on that subject. And the Lord said to Satan, what is thy word to me concerning all these children of the earth? And Satan answered the Lord and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve thee and remember thee when they require anything from thee. Like, is God schizophrenic? I don't know. Well, we got, I guess Yeshua talks to Yahweh. And when thou givest them the thing which they require from thee, they sit at their ease and forsake thee, and they remember thee no more. Hast thou seen Abraham the son of Terah, who at first had no children, and he served thee and erected altars to thee whenever he came, and he brought up offerings unto them, and he proclaimed thy name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that his son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken thee, and made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, and the Lord he has forgotten. For amidst all these that he has done, he brought thee no offering, neither burnt offering, nor peace offering, neither ox, lamb, nor goat, of all that he killed on that day, that his son was weaned. Even from the time of his son's birth till now, being 37 years, he built no altar before thee, nor brought any offering to thee, for he saw that thou didst give what he requested before thee, and he therefore forsook thee. I'm trying to look at this too now, is God talking to himself now? So I'm trying to weigh this thought, and I'll come back to you. I'll keep doing this just to see if test this little theory out. I don't like it. I don't like it at all, but keep an open mind, I guess. And the Lord said to Satan, hast thou thus considered my servant Abraham? For there is none like him upon the earth. Very Job-esque, right? A perfect and upright man before me, one that heareth God and avoideth evil. As I live, where I say unto you, bring up Isaac thy son before me, he would not withhold him from me. Much more if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flock or herds. And Satan answered the Lord and said, speak then now unto Abraham, as thou hast said, and thou wilt see whether he will not this day transgress and cast aside thy words. Either way, it's an interesting relationship they have. So this is the second account we kind of have like this, where they're having this conversation, testing man. Are we some sort of cosmic chess game as people? Jasher 23. We know where this is going. Anyone saying hello? No one's saying hi. Okay. Not that time. Nate is dying and needeth water. And there was water. I needeth doth drink. And it was good. And at that time word of the Lord came to Abraham. And he said unto him, Abraham. And he said, here I am. And he said to him, Take now thy son, thine only son, whom thou lovest, even Isaac, he calls him his only son there, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which shall be shown to thee. For there wilt thou see a cloud, and the glory of the Lord. And Abraham said to himself, Now I shall separate my son Isaac from Sarah his mother, in order to bring him up for a burnt offering before the Lord. So he is questioning this. And Abraham came into his tent, and he sat before Sarah his wife, and he spoke these words to her, My son Isaac is grown up, and he has not for some time studied the service of his God. Now tomorrow I will go and bring him to Shem and Eber his son. Shem's Noah's son, so I can't still alive. Wow. And there he will learn the ways of the Lord, and they will teach him to know the Lord as well, as to know that when he prayeth continually before the Lord, he will answer him, and therefore there he will know the way of serving the Lord his God. And Sarah said, Thou hast spoken well. Go, my lord, and do unto him as thou hast said. But remove him not at a great distance from me, neither let him remain there too long, for my soul is bound within his soul. And Abraham said unto Sarah, My daughter, let us pray to the Lord our God, that he may do good with us. And Sarah took her son Isaac, and he abode all that night with her, and she kissed and embraced him, and gave him instructions till morning. And she said to him, O my son, how can my soul separate itself from thee? And she still kissed him and embraced him. And she gave Abraham instructions concerning him. And Sarah said to Abraham, O my lord, I pray thee, take heed of my son, and place thine eyes over him, for I have no other son nor daughter but him. O forsake him not. If he be hungry, give him bread, and if he be thirsty, give him water to drink. Do not let him go on foot, neither let him sit in the sun. Neither let him go by himself in the road, neither force him from whatever he may desire, but do unto him as he may say to thee. And Sarah wept bitterly the whole night on account of Isaac, and she gave him instructions till morning. And in the morning Sarah selected a very fine and beautiful garment from those garments which she had in the house that Abimelech had given to her pimp daddy. And she dressed Isaac, her son, therewith, and she put a turban upon his head. And she enclosed a precious stone in the top of the turban, and she gave them provisions of the road. And they went forth, and Isaac went with his father Abraham, and some of the servants accompanied them to see them off the road. And Sarah went out with them, and she accompanied them upon the road to see them off. And they said to her, Return to the tent. And Sarah heard these words of her son Isaac. She wept bitterly, and Abraham her husband wept with her. And their son wept with them, then a great weeping, and also went with them, wept great, lots of weeping. And Sarah caught hold of her son Isaac, and she held him in her arms, and she embraced him, and continued to weep with him. And Sarah said, Who knoweth if after this day I shall ever see thee again? And they still wept together, Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, and all those who accompanied them on the road wept with them. We get it, they're weeping, jeez. All right, bring him up. And Abraham went with Isaac his son to bring him up as an offering before the Lord, as he commanded him. So did he lie to Sarah? Interesting. And Abraham took two of his young men with him, Ishmael the son of Hagar, and Eliezer his servant. Interesting. And they went together with them. And whilst they were walking on the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eliezer, Now my father Abraham is going with Isaac to bring him up for a burnt offering to the Lord, as he commanded him. Now when he returneth, he will give unto me all that he possesses, to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn. Interesting. And Eliezer answered Ishmael and said, Surely Abraham did cast thee away with thy mother, and swear that thou shouldst not inherit anything of all he possesses, and to whom he will give all that he has, with all his treasures, but unto me his servant, naughty servant, who has been faithful to his house, who has served him night and day, and has done all that he has desired of me. To me he will bequeath at his death all that he possesses. Ooh, contention on the road. And whilst Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the road, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and contrite of spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, Art thou silly or brutish that thou goest to do this thing this day to thine only son? So here we're seeing the only son thing again. So the other one was cast away. So it answers the skeptic's question in the Brit Hadashah. For God gave thee a son in thy later days, in thy old age. And wilt thou go and slaughter him this day, because he committed no violence? And wilt thou cause the soul of thine only to perish from the earth? Dost thou not know and understand that this thing cannot be from the Lord? For the Lord cannot do unto man such evil upon the earth to slay him. Go slaughter thy child. Tricky. And Abraham heard this, and knew that it was the word of Satan, who endeavored to draw him aside from the way of the Lord. But Abraham would not hearken to the voice of Satan. And Abraham rebuked him, so that he went away. So he rebukes him, he has to go away. And Satan returned and came to Isaac, and he appeared unto Isaac in the figure of a young man, comely and well-favored. And he approached Isaac and said to him, Dost thou not know and understand that thy old silly father bringeth thee to slaughter thee this day? Now therefore, my son, do not listen or attend to him, for he is a silly old man. And let not thy precious soul and beautiful figure be lost from the earth. And Isaac heard this, and said unto him, Hast thou heard, my father, which this man has spoken? Even thus is he spoken. And Abraham answered his son Isaac, and said to him, Take heed of him, and do not listen to his words, nor attend him, for he is Satan, endeavoring to draw us aside from this day, from the commands of God. How did he know? How did he know? And Abraham still rebuked Satan. Satan went forth from them, and seeing he could not prevail over them, he hid himself from them. And he went and passed before them in the road, and he transformed himself into a large brook of water in the road. Okay. And Abraham and Isaac and his 2 young men reached that place, and they saw a brook, and a powerful as the mighty waters. And they entered the brook and passed through it, and the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper in the brook, and the waters reached up to their necks, and they were all terrified on account of the waters. Whilst they were going over the brook, Abraham recognized that place, and he knew that there was no water there before. And Abraham said to his son, I know this place in which there was no brook nor water. Now therefore it is this Satan who does all this to us. Draw aside this day from the commands of God, to draw us aside. And Abraham rebuked him and said to him, Lord, rebuke thee, O Satan, begone from us, for we go by the commands of God. And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them, and the place again became dry as it was at first. So if you're questioning things, I guess it's good to pray and rebuke to see if it is a deception. So don't trust your heart, right? We can't trust our hearts. It's great speaking on that. If you go into Messianic Torah Observant Israel, you got a whole bunch of videos on the heart. Heart of the matter. It goes through the entire Bible, including the New Testament, looking at how the heart is referred to. Awesome study. I didn't even finish it yet because there's literally 60 videos, hour long. Yeah. Whew, I'll get there. Terrified. Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and went away from them. And that place became dry as it was. Terrified, right? Look at that. Abraham went with Isaac toward the place that God had told him. And on the 3rd day of Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance which God had told him of. And a pillar of fire appeared to him that reached from the earth to heaven, and a cloud of glory upon the mountain. And the glory of the Lord was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said to Isaac, My son, dost thou see in that mountain which we perceived at a distance, that which I see upon it? So is he lying about going to see Shem? Because we know Shem was the king of Jerusalem. And interesting. This is very interesting. Isaac answered and said to his father, I see, and lo, a pillar of fire and a cloud, and the glory of the Lord is seen upon the cloud. So it makes sense they're going towards Israel. If Abraham's recognizing this place because he's been to Jerusalem before, because he went and studied under Noah and Shem when he was a young man, about the same age. And Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before the Lord for a burnt offering. And Abraham said unto Eliezer and unto Ishmael his son, Do you also see that which we see upon the mountain, which is at a distance? And they answered and said, We see nothing more than like the other mountains of the earth. And Abraham knew that they were not accepted before the Lord to go with them, because they weren't right in their hearts, neither of them were. And Abraham said to them, Abide ye here with the ass, while I and Isaac make my son will go to yonder mount and worship there before the Lord, and then return to you. He's probably saving their lives, be in the presence of God. People die if they're not right because of sin. So we need the covering. Eliezer and Ishmael remained in that place as Abraham had commanded. And Abraham took wood for a burnt offering and placed it upon his son Isaac, and he took the fire and the knife, and they both went to that place. And when they were going along, Isaac said to his father, Behold, I see here the wood, the fire and the wood. Where then is the lamb that is the burnt offering before the Lord? You know what's going on. You asked for this. Sorry, it's mean. And Abraham answered his son, saying, The Lord has made choice of thee, my son, to be a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb. And so he comes out and says it. Whew. And Isaac said unto his father, I will do all that the Lord spoke to thee, with joy and cheerfulness of heart. So he's just like, where's the lamb? It's me, right? Maybe that's the wrong impression here. And Abraham again said unto Isaac his son, Is there in thy heart any thought or counsel concerning this, which is not proper? Tell me, my son, I pray thee. Oh, my son, conceal it not from me. Because he's like, don't have any pride here. And Isaac answered his father and said unto him, O my father, as the Lord liveth, as thy soul liveth, there is nothing in my heart to cause me to deviate either to the right or to the left from the word that he has spoken to thee. So we got trust. Neither limb nor muscle has moved or stirred at this, nor is there in my heart any thought of evil counsel concerning this. But I am joyful and cheerful in heart in this matter, and I say, Blessed is the Lord, who has this day chosen me as a burnt offering before him. And Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac, and they went on and came together to that place that the Lord had spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in that place, and Abraham was weeping. And Isaac took stones and mortar until they had finished building the altar. And Abraham took the wood and placed it in order upon the altar which he had built. And he took his son Isaac and bound him in order to place him upon the wood which was upon the altar, to slay him for a burnt offering before the Lord. And Isaac said to his father, Bind me securely, and then place me upon the altar, lest I should turn and move, and break loose from the force of the knife upon my flesh, and therefore profane the burnt offering. And Abraham did so. And Isaac said to his father, O my father, when thou shalt have slain me, and burnt me up for an offering, take with thee that which shall remain of my ashes, to bring to Sarah my mother, and say to her, This is the sweet smelling savor of Isaac. Do not tell her this if she should sit near a well or upon any high place, lest she should cast her soul after me and die. And Abraham heard the words of Isaac, and he lifted up his voice and wept when Isaac spake these words. And Abraham's tears gushed down upon Isaac his son, and Isaac wept bitterly. And he said to his father, Hasten now, O my father, and do with me the will of the Lord our God, as he hath commanded thee. And the hearts of Abraham and Isaac rejoiced at this thing which the Lord had commanded them, but the eye wept bitterly, while the heart rejoiced. And Abraham bound his son Isaac, and placed him on the altar upon the wood, and Isaac stretched forth his neck upon the altar before his father. And Abraham stretched forth his hand to take the knife to slay his son as a burnt offering before the Lord. At that time the angels of mercy came before the Lord, and spake to him concerning Isaac, saying, interesting, O Lord, thou art a merciful and compassionate king over all that thou hast created in heaven and earth, and thou supportest them all. Give therefore ransom and redemption instead of thy servant Isaac, and pity, and have compassion upon Abraham and Isaac his son, who are this day performing thy commands. Hast thou seen, O Lord, how Isaac the son of Abraham, thy servant, is bound down to the slaughter like an animal? Now therefore let the pity be roused before them, O Lord. Interesting. At that time the Lord appeared unto Abraham, and called to him from heaven, and said unto him, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou not anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God in performing this act, and in not withholding thy son, thine only son, from me. So was he testing the angels as well as Abraham and Isaac? He was testing Satan too. He saw what Satan had to say. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, a ram was caught in a thicket of thorns. And that was the ram which the Lord had created in the earth in the day that he made earth and heaven. That was the ram which the Lord had created earth in the day. Don't know what that means. For the Lord had prepared this ram from that day to be a burnt offering instead of Isaac. It's an old, if I'm reading this right, this is an old ram. This ram was in the garden. This ram got on the ark. This ram was wandering around. How old is this ram? Old ram. It's like a 1620. It's close to 2,500 years old. And this ram was advancing to Abraham when Satan caught hold of him and entangled his horns in the thicket. The ram is 2,500 years old, and you're still picking on it, that he might not advance to Abraham, in order that Abraham might slay his son. And Abraham, seeing the ram advancing to him, and Satan withholding him, fetched him, and brought him before the altar. And he loosened his son Isaac from his binding, and he put the ram in his stead. And Abraham killed the ram upon the altar, and brought it up as an offering in the place of his son Isaac. And Abraham sprinkled some of the blood of the ram upon the altar, and he exclaimed and said, This is in the place of my son, and may this be considered this day as the blood of my son before the Lord. And all that Abraham did on this occasion by the altar, he would exclaim and say, This is the room of my son, and may it this day be considered before the Lord in the place of my son. And Abram finished the whole of the service by the altar, and the service was accepted before the Lord. And it was accounted as it had been Isaac. And the Lord blessed Abraham and his seed on that day. And Satan went to Sarah, and he appeared to her in the figure of an old man, very humble and meek. And Abraham yet engaged in the burnt offering before the Lord. And he said to her, Dost thou not know all the work that Abraham has made with thine son only this day? For he took Isaac and built an altar and killed him, and brought him up as a sacrifice upon the altar. And Isaac cried and wept before his father, but he looked not at him, neither did he have compassion over him. Satan's a jerk. Satan repeated these words, and he went away from her. And Sarah heard all the words of Satan, and she imagined him to be an old man from amongst the sons of men, who had been with her son, and had come and told her these things. And Sarah lifted up her voice and wept and cried out bitterly on account of her son. And she threw herself upon the ground, and she cast dust upon her head, and said, O my son Isaac, O my son, on this day, O that I had died this day instead of thee. And she continued to weep, and said, It grieves me for thee, my son, my son Isaac, oh that I had died this day in thy stead. And interesting, like in the garden account with Eve and now Sarah, like it seems like the women are more swayed by the devil, and that's because the man is supposed to be the protection over her. It's interesting. I don't know if there's anything there. Any questions? I have many. And she still continued to weep, and said, It grieves me for thee, after that I have reared thee and brought thee up. Now my joy is turned into mourning over thee, I that had a longing for thee, and cried and prayed to God, till I bare thee at 90 years old. And now hast thou served this day for the knife and the fire, to be made an offering. But I console myself with thee, my son, in its being the word of the Lord, for thou didst perform the command of thy God. For who can transgress the word of our God, in whose hands is the soul of every living creature? Thou art just, O Lord our God, for all thy works are good and righteous. For I also am rejoicing with thee with thy word, which thou didst command. And whilst mine eye weepeth bitterly, my heart rejoiceth. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaids, and she became as still as a stone. She afterward rose up and went about making inquiries till she came to Hebron. And she inquired of all those whom she met, walking in the road, and no one could tell her what had happened to her son. Yay, we're almost done. And she came with her maidservants and men servants to Kerith Arba, which is Hebron. And she asked concerning her son, and she remained there while she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Isaac. And they went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, and they could not find him. So he lied. And they sought throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man again. And he came. Watch out for old men, apparently. I'm going to be looking at all these old men and be like, you devil. I know a couple of these old men that are really shady. Oh. And he came and stood before her, and he said unto her, I spoke falsely unto thee, for Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was exceedingly violent on account of her son. And her soul went through joy, and she died and was gathered to her people. What? And when Abraham had finished his service, he returned with his son Isaac to his young men. And they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham sought for Sarah, and he could not find her. And he made inquiries concerning her, and they said unto him, She went as far as Hebron to seek you both where you had gone, for thus she was informed. And Abraham and Isaac went to her to Hebron. And when they found that she was dead, they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Isaac fell upon his mother's face and wept over her. And he said, O my mother, how hast thou left me? And where hast thou gone? O how hast thou left me? And Abraham and Isaac wept greatly, and all their servants wept with them on account of Sarah. And they mourned over her a great and heavy mourning. Wow, that's a great way to end that, right? I posted this, Answering Atheists, Lot's Daughters. That was covered in this portion. I'm tired. I'm going to go shower, get ready for work. Ugh. But yeah, a lot of questions I have about that. I need some time to think about them, so maybe I'll make some notes later on. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them. I will direct you, or we can discuss them. I don't have many answers.